You hung first. I'd like to call to order the September 18, 2012 meeting of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. And as always, if you'll join me in the pledge, we'll start there. Thank you. And I will have the invocation tonight if you'll pray with me. God, thank you for the privilege and opportunity to work with and represent the people of Buncombe County. You've assembled some wonderful leadership that sits with me tonight, that cares about our children, our economy, our mountains, and all the other aspects that make Buncombe County such a wonderful place to live. Keep your strong and protective hands over our armed forces and embassy staff who proudly represent us around the world during these times of strife, unrest, and conflict. Give the men and women who are suffering through tough financial times relief and encouragement toward the better times. Give the healthy, give health to the sick, give love to the bitter, give happiness and joy to the sad, comfort to the hopeless, and a sense of community to those who feel isolated. Thanks for the chance to improve the lives of our children, parents, grandparents, retirees, and everybody else who lives in our community. We can't do this without your help. Give us wisdom and the ability to do the right things that are pleasing and help all Buncombe County. Amen. We have an agenda published. I would like to have a brief discussion or a question about the Fair Housing Commission under the consent agenda, so I'd ask that comes up. Is there any other matters that you'd like to be brought up?
No, sir.
Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as it's been presented then?
So move. Second.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Commissioner Jones. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of following the agenda other than moving up the housing, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries 4-0. Vice Chair Stanley is traveling today. He will not be with us. And Dr. Green, our county manager, is under the weather today, and she will not be with us. We had a Know Your Numbers update. Miss Lynn Rapp is also under the weather, so that's been postponed until our next meeting. Ethics reminder. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the Commissioner, it's the duty of every Commissioner to avoid both actual and apparent conflicts of interest. Does any board member know of any potential or actual conflict of interest with respect to any matter coming before us today?
No, sir.
All righty. So we've got old business. We have Mr. Roberts here to tell us about the ordinance adopting schedules, standards, and rules to be used in appraising real property. Gary?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, other commissioners, I actually want to take a little time to give you just a little update of the tax office and then look at the schedule for adoption. That won't take very long. Recently, in August, we mailed out our tax bills. At the time I told you guys we would be having citizens to mail their taxes to 35 Woodfin, Asheville address. We no longer use any out-of-town address on our tax bills now. The process we have on posting tax payments is working great. So citizens shouldn't see any addresses for Charlotte any longer on our tax notices. Reappraisal, just want to give you a little bit of update on that. That's coming along great. We're right on schedule. We're looking at the neighborhoods. I talked to you a little bit about how we use the neighborhoods to do mass appraisal. We're still gathering data from sales and construction costs, looking at the most current information we can to appraise homes for 2013 values that we're going to do. We're now putting land figures on, should have those done in the next couple of weeks, and we'll come back doing some of the improvement figures. The schedule values that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, we're pulling a lot of the data out, some of the numbers that we can go ahead and begin entering into our tax system to be doing the pricing, so we've got that. We sent some of our staff back out in the field to update on new construction and stuff that's in the community, so we can keep that updated. So when we do the reval, we've got all the most current information that's taken place this year in our county. Commercial property owners, we had a great meeting recently. We had close to 15 of them to show up in our office. Had a great meeting where they sat down and told us some of the trends that they're seeing in the market, how they're renting, different allowances they're having to do with some of the tenants that they have on helping us how to value those properties. It was a great discussion. We'll do that with some other different sectors as we get moving along through the reval too. Linda Brown and myself are beginning to get asked to come out to the community, speak about reval, so we may hear about us out doing that. And as we get going, we'll get with Kathy Hughes on getting some information out to the public and the newspaper on informing people what to expect. Any questions from any of that on the updates that I've talked about?
So when does the window drop in terms of all the values have been collected? Because at some point it's a stopping point, and then that's the values to going forward. So when is that?
Exactly. You know, we try to get any sales or construction costs all the way up to the last moment. We'll keep analyzing the data. When I say the data, it's kind of like the neighborhoods. We'll keep looking at them and trying to get the best information to put the most, I guess, the best value, the most current value we can get up to January 1st of 2013. So honestly, cutting it off is going to be somewhere probably about Thanksgiving for us. Now, people that still have some sales taking place and they want to use that information on their appeals, we encourage it. But now when you start getting past January 1st, we'll probably look about maybe 2 to 3 months after that we'll have to cut off.
Gotcha.
Those sales are still pretty recent. If somebody comes in with a February sale that is pretty relevant to January 1 that we could use it. So,
Thank you.
And Gary, is it fair to say that you take a picture as of the date of the evaluation, and that's where for the next period, be it 4 years, 6 years, up to a maximum of 8 years, that you work on as far as appraising the property from then on?
Exactly. When we do the reappraisal, we set a date, and that's what the schedule of values is tonight. It's a document that allows us to value properties based on a specific date. And that date is going to be January 1st, 2013. So if we value any property in 2014, 15, all the way up for 8 years, that is the document that we will use to come up with the assessment value for real estate.
And so right now, all the values have been January 1, 2006, between that time and now. So everybody, that's what the bill has been on.
Exactly. Exactly. Any assessment we do, like this year, we go back and look at what was the market value based on the schedule values that you approved at that time to value properties as of January 1, 2006. And when I talked to you earlier about encouraging you to do the reappraisal, it was because of the inequity today versus 7 years ago of what those property values are, because some of them are overvalued and some of them are undervalued. But doing the reappraisal now gets everybody back to the same equity. Everybody's at the market value as of January 1st of this 2013. That's what our hope is.
All right, sir. Any other questions or comments?
Just a little bit on the schedule values. You talked about that. Just, it's a book. It's real detailed. It's got the rules, the schedules, the methods that we use to appraise property. It's a very detailed document of how we do that. It shows a lot of photographs of different kinds of homes, talks about grade and condition, talks about commercial properties, industrial, land, just between rural. It's got our present use, anybody that has ag, forestry, or horticulture, how to value those properties. Did deliver that book to you guys on August 13th. On August 14th, Kathy Hughes, our clerk, advertised it in the paper, said it was available for review in our tax office. We have had some people to come and look at it, made some comments on it, which we greatly appreciate. We had a public hearing on September 4th as required. And then tonight, I'm before you to ask you to approve the adoption of the schedule of values.
Do we inform people that have like forest land that they can, if they are eligible for a program that would decrease the value, do we do that?
We don't necessarily at the tax office. There is a group out there that does work with the farmers and foresters, anybody that has large tracts that talk to them, that does inform them. Now, not everybody goes into those programs. There's reasons they do and don't. People that buy large tracts quickly call our office. So I think there are groups out there that contact them and make them aware of it.
And it's our policy, if they do contact us, is there anything we can do? We do pass that along. We just don't throw it at them when we give them the appraisal.
Oh, no. Well, we actually give them a lot of detailed information. We give them a brochure first. We give them an application. We sit down through an interview process and go through the entire program with them. We give them some estimates if they do choose to go into program, what to expect. We talk to them about if they come out of the program, what the tax implications may be, unless they stay in for, a long period of time. So we do cover that pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, and I think we've heard in other presentations, there are some programs that you can come out anytime, and there's some you're expected to stay in.
Exactly. Exactly. Each of those
We've heard
programs
about through the years.
Right. Each of those programs are differently and have different tax implications depending on how long you stay in or when you come out. Sometimes you have to pay deferred taxes. Sometimes when you come out, you don't. So there's different programs for those different people.
All righty.
I will say this, when you guys approve the schedule tonight, should you, we will work with Kathy Hughes on advertising the schedule once a week for 4 additional weeks to let citizens know there is opportunity to appeal it at a different level. After that point, the schedule is set, and it will be the document that we'll use until you guys choose when we do the next reappraisal. So unless you have any questions, I would ask that you adopt the schedule and
What
rules.
is the reval in the future from right now? Are there other counties that have already reevaluated? Are they looking at 4 years, or is anybody talking about that?
Yeah, actually there are, Mr. Bailey, there's different counties use different, they're all the same methods, but different schedules depending on their economies. A lot of the smaller rural counties will wait to the 8th year. More larger counties have gotten to where they're doing 4 years. There's 2 large counties that have looked at doing less than that based on the economy. I think as the recession came, they've kind of gotten away from that and at least stayed at the 4 and 6 year period. A lot of them dropped back from 4 and at least went to 6 years. And then how you guys did, look each year at the values and try to make a decision from that. So a lot of counties are doing that, taking the yearly approach and trying to determine, do they want to do it, odd years through there as the economy's beginning to pick up.
So the bottom line is you will start evaluating after the first year and inform commissioners as to
Exactly.
what you think needs to.
Right, and I would encourage you, from my role to yours, to get back on the plan of 4 years. I think the citizens really like that plan. We had a lot of them to call us when we didn't do it. I think there's a lot of, in the banking world, insurance attorneys, I think a lot of them had that mindset for that it was something that was going to happen. I didn't foresee that when I came to you and asked you to rescind that and delay it. I did talk to the community. I think a lot of the people said they understood in 2010 why we were not doing it, because the economy had really not had a bottom yet. I think sales were all over the place. I think they were as worried about the sales that we were going to use to do the reappraisal with as what we're looking at today. It's a lot more stable. And like the commercial group that we had the other day, they used a term called a barbell effect, and meaning that there's high, very extreme sales, and then there's very low sales. Which one are you going to use? We're going to try to use a mixture of those. We're certainly not going to pick the highest commercial sale in the community, and assess every commercial property by that. But we have to look at it, and if it is an extreme sale and it's unique, we're going to have to lay that aside and look at the ones that are on average. So it's it is something that I think that each county needs to look at independently and decide, is it a 2 year or is it a 4, could be a 6, but you at least have all the way up to 8 years to make that decision as their governing board, what's best. And when you guys make that decision, you're making it for all the municipalities in this area, the fire departments and the school system too. So it's a very important decision for you guys to look at. Yearly is a great idea.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we adopt the ordinance.
I second that motion.
It's been a motion by Commissioner Bailey, a second by Commissioner Peterson. Is there any discussion?
I would just like to say that I think we're very fortunate that Gary Roberts keeps us informed as to what his recommendation is, as due to the fact that he is the expert in this field, and we rely heavily on his expertise, and we always have an open discussion with him, and he's willing to come anytime and bring us up to date on what he feels that we should do as far as the tax reval. And I want to say I appreciate that open communication. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that. I don't know which way it'll go for any individual home. It is 2006, and my feeling is that most people are going to have less value. But we don't know. I don't think anybody has a crystal ball. Things are recovering, so it'll be, I guess it's just unknown, isn't it, what any individual, whether, I think, well, I guess we just are not, it's just an unknown. We've never had a period of our history like this, have we, since the Depression?
It's very different that you can't say that you've seen property values rising, or you're continuing to see them drop. I think it is a little bit of unknown right now. There's a lot of neighborhoods that you can look at and see that there is some consistency in value that you might make that decision and say they're going to be up or down. Overall, though, county manager at least every other week has asked me, have we got some values that I can start looking at yet? And it is early. It'll probably be into November before we'll actually see that and can make some hard decisions on that.
And of course, what people pay ultimately depends on what the tax rate is. That's just one factor, is what the fair market value is going to be, and then the rate's really equally important in determining what the bill is going to be.
Exactly. That's a great question. When the tax office finishes the reappraisal, our job is to do the values only, and we will submit those to you and the other taxing districts. Each board, yourself and the others, have to look at that and determine what is the need for revenue for the services that you want to offer or currently offering. And depending on what that value is, it could go up or down in a tax bill. I mean, a same neighborhood, a property could go up a little bit, or another one could come down a little bit, and it could be very different from what they're paying today. We hope that.
And the issue of equity, that word gets used a lot, and I think it's absolutely appropriate for you to utilize that word. And you're talking about property equity, but I think down the road, when we do have to do that part of the job that's on this side to do in terms of determine a tax rate, that's when the equity will have a different meaning around basically which taxpayers are kind of how that's all going to shake out. And that piece of the equity has been my concern, and I'm still concerned about it. That said, I'm supportive of the process going forward. I feel like I've laid that out, and now we're on a course, and your folks are doing great work, and we're educating the community, and so I'm supportive of it going forward. But I just wanted to offer that nuance around that word equity, because you are absolutely doing your job around the property equity, and I think the elected officials have to kind of also balance how the equity will play out with the taxpayers at the end of the day. So, but I'll be supportive of this today.
That's a good point. For the tax department, our equity is going to be that we need to hit market value of what a person's home is really worth at the point of what they could sell it for, January 1st, 2013. Now, a lot of people look at their home and it's just that, it's a home. It doesn't have a dollar amount. They don't see it when they drive in the driveway, but it does have a value. And our job is to determine that and bring all property values in the community up to that same level. And then, like you say, at that point, I give you the values, and it's up to you guys to set the tax rate for the revenue that the county needs.
I call for the question.
All righty. All those in favor of the motion by Commissioner Bailey to adopt the ordinance adopting schedules, standards, and rules to be used in appraising real property in the 2013 reevaluation, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ordinance is adopted 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
Can I ask a question about personal property taxes? I know that process is changing.
Yes, motor vehicles can be
Right. And how do the people in the community know that? And how are they going to be educated about that?
The goal of the state is, as we get going closer to the end of the year,
When is it effective?
July 1 of 2013.
Okay.
People begin receiving their registrations to purchase a sticker for their license plate, the renewal notice, or DMV calls it an invitation, but it's a renewal notice. Our office will actually begin assessing values in March. So those can be sent out in June to people to renew their tags in July. So Buncombe's actually in a pilot program that's going to actually start in November using the new software and working with the state to make sure that all the bugs of anything that happens in Buncombe County, of all the vehicles here, as we dump some data in that system, they're going to look at all of the vehicle registrations and stuff and see, is there any unique kind of vehicle situations that might pop up that they haven't looked at. So it's really great that Buncombe County's in that pilot program of that. Some of the larger counties got picked. But you're exactly right. There's going to be a big change. And I would expect that our motor vehicle notices that we send out later in the year is going to have that information about what to expect. Now, we won't hit every owner in the county, but the ones renewing those tags at that point, we will, which we hope that we'll get a lot out. But the state, the Department of Motor Vehicles, and or I should say the Department of Revenue is the one that's guiding the whole project. And then the League of Municipalities Commissioners Association and the DMV office are coming up with what that uniform information should be for all counties to use. Should see that later in the fall.
Okay.
But you're right, that's a big change getting ready to come up. Huge.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to hear, we've adopted all the consent agenda, but we pulled, I asked the Fair Housing Commission, repealing the Asheville Fair Housing Commission be brought up, and ask Mr. Euler to tell us about why we're repealing the Asheville Fair Housing Commission.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Back in 1990, you, along with the city of Asheville, created a joint agency, the Asheville-Buncombe Fair Housing Commission, and in association with the Asheville-Buncombe Community Relations Council, they basically handled all the fair housing complaints in the area under, that would go under the HUD program. And they did this basically through the summer of 2011. At that time, HUD decertified the Community Relations Council and basically transferred the enforcement and the appeals and everything to the State of North Carolina Human Relations Commission. When they did that, they basically made the Fair Housing Commission didn't have any role, or they didn't do anything. So basically we waited until the city of Asheville in August of 2012, August 28th, they passed a resolution basically repealing the 1990 ordinance, and basically what we're here today is just asking you essentially to repeal our half of that, and basically so that the commission can be dissolved.
So that anyone that has a complaint can still go straight to the state of North Carolina?
It's being enforced by the state of North Carolina, yes.
All right.
Move we repeal the ordinance.
Second.
Been a motion by Commissioner Bailey, a second by Commissioner Peterson to adopt the ordinance repealing the Asheville Fair Housing Commission. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ordinance is adopted 4-0. We have board appointments, Board of Adjustment. Any nominations?
I nominate for reappointment Ms. Laurie Camerata. And if I mispronounce something, please correct me. I goofed it last time. So Mr. James Wilson, Ms. Peggy Mann, and Mr. George Lyken.
All right, those individuals have been nominated for the 4 reappointments. Any other nominations? All those in favor of the nominations as stated by Commissioner Jones, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The individuals are appointed 4-0. Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee, we have 2 vacancies.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Vicki Eatman.
Ms. Eatman's been nominated. Are there any other nominations? All those in favor of appointing Vicki Eatman to the board, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ms. Eatman is appointed. The next regular meeting of our board will be October 2nd, 2012, beginning at 4:30. The November 6th regular meeting of the board has been canceled to allow equipment to be moved to our new chambers across the street. Beginning November 20 regular meeting, commissioner meetings will be held at 2000 College Street on the 3rd floor. 200 College Street. Might be looking for that one. Commissioner meetings can be seen on BCTV Charter Cable Channel 2, ATT Uverse Channel 99, live on buncombecounty.org during the meetings, or online anytime at buncombecounty.org. Mr. Frew, we have a closed session?
No, sir, not today.
All right, then we're ready for public comment. The official business of the county is concluded. We'll now hold public comment. The time limit for any comment is 3 minutes. If your time expires, you may leave any questions along with your name, address, and phone number with the county manager. Commission members are not expected to comment on matters during public comment. Comments should be limited to subjects that are within the jurisdiction of this commission or pertain to matters upon which we may act. Any individual speaking during public comment shall address the entire commission. Any polling of board members is inappropriate. People addressing the board are expected to observe the decorum of the chamber and to be respectful of everyone in the room. Any person who willfully interrupts, disturbs, or disrupts the session will be asked to leave the meeting, and the commission reserves the right to deny public address on any subject previously presented to the commission. Any public comment tonight? Mr. Yelton.
Well, I just lost a bet because I made a bet to somebody that I wasn't going to say anything tonight, and I knew it was a short meeting. But I can't pass this opportunity up to suggest, and David, I think I'll see you writing this down because I think it's a very good idea. On the tax page, you need to have your programs, i.e. forestry and farm, and you need to have the basic outline. You got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this to qualify, which would keep people from applying if they don't have the background, but would alleviate you from saying that you don't tell everybody, because it would be there for everybody to see. And I think that's a very valuable thing, because we always hear about the quality of life in Buncombe County. We always say we want to save money and set millions of dollars aside to buy conservation easements, and we know that green spaces are valuable. But rather than floating a $100 million bond to buy green spaces, I have another suggestion that I would like for this board to evaluate. And I've been talking about this for as long as I've been coming to these meetings. If somebody's got 6 acres, they don't have enough land to go into the forestry conservation or the farm conservation. But it may be a man that has a house and he doesn't want to develop that 5 acres. And if he doesn't, that 5 acres should not be taxed at the rate of buildable land. He should be able to do the same thing that you do with forestry preservation. He should be able to put that in a contract with the county that he's not going to develop it. And folks, you could do that and lower the tax rate. And if it is sold for development, then tax the sale of that property by 50 or 60%. And that way you don't have to spend the money up front to preserve the open spaces and the green spaces. And I think you always want to strive for first. I think that would be a first that would really help this county in terms of balancing its budget, still yet getting open spaces. So please consider that.
Thank you, Mr. Yelton. Any other comments? Dr. Byrd.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dr. Milton Byrd. Pleasure to see you. Watching the last meeting on BCTV on this issue of the greenway system, and I'm a very big proponent and supporter of greenway systems because they are a big benefit to the community in many levels. But the issue I kept hearing coming across was money. And when I was on the council in Fletcher, one of the things we tried to do when we started our greenway system was to look at an entrepreneurial plan for a greenway system to interact business-wise so that you begin to build an economic model for the greenway system that generates a revenue base that can build long-term resources and interact with volunteers to create public-private partnerships that build a new format for economic development with a greenway system. I want you to think about that. It's called an entrepreneurial plan. There's something else, though, I heard in that meeting that I want to convey to you as a Big Ivy resident. For over 3 years, we had a smart growth committee going on up there, and we created the Big Ivy Rural Preservation Society, which got shut down by citizens in complaint and frustration and even harassment. I watched it in those meetings where 20 to 25 people became so irate about community planning that they came into our meetings and literally challenged and harassed, no finger pointing as to who, but I went to a magistrate about it, and it was a classic tactic of harassment. My point is there is an attitude that has been presented here with that greenway system that didn't represent the public, because over 370 people spent over 3 years coming to a cumulative plan for community development for the Big Ivy area, which represented rural preservation with economic development planning, which included greenway system. Now, my point is that there's a lot more going on in this community that gets to this podium. Greenway's a good example of it. The water issue is a good example of it. The challenge to you as leaders is to recognize it doesn't always get to your face to understand what's going on. And I know how valuable that is to you. That's another reason why this podium is so important in your communication and interaction with the people who stand here, who represent this community, and who are our leaders as citizens. Because the citizens are the authority. You are representatives in service to us. I respect your work. Let's keep it going forward. But we got some serious economics to work on changing. And I want to add one last thing, because I've made this request before. It is time for the water issue to get dealt with, because we are a metropolitan area. This commission needs to make a statement of support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Byrd. Any other comments tonight? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Shortest meeting we've had in a long time, right? I thought public comment was going to make it longer than the business did. Anyway, there's some thoughts that comes to me when I think of this tax business. And it is this: how can Buncombe County get a AAA bond rating in one of the worst economies of the century, or since the 1900s? How can you get a AAA bond rating? The other concern I have is we're living on borrowed money. Federal debt is already beyond anything that we could ever imagine on a daily basis. We're living on borrowed money, and Medicaid money, federal money, stimulus money, we've not seen the effects of that yet. When that is out of the picture and we really see the picture, who is the money going to fall on? You brought up a good point, David. The personal property is going to look like it's going to have to go down. There ain't no question it will go down. But here's the other question: the industrial and the commercial businesses. Who is it going to fall on the back of to hold our indebtedness up? Because the federal government ain't going to do it. It's going to come down to the taxpayers. And I don't think it's going to be as pretty as what it's being made out to be. And I just feel sorry for the ones that has to deal with it. But what I'd like to see, and I think the commissioners needs to hear it even now, is in the last, from 2006 until the present, they've evaluated property every year. I accused them of it at 2006 because the rate started going up in 2006 because they went out and started appraising property a lot more than they ever have in the history every year. So what was the trend? Is it commercial, industrial, or personal? Where did they see that trend for the last 6 years on a yearly basis? Not this that the tax man is talking about today. I'm talking about give us a report that tells us year by year from 2006 how these individual compartmentalized commercial, industrial, and personal. And let's see how that played out. And then that might be an indicator of what we might be really looking at. The other thing is, why not form committees with people like the housing people or other people and have these meetings on a monthly basis or quarterly basis that would bring in something that you wouldn't have to be digging for at the end.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wright. Any other public comment tonight?
Move we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 We're adjourned.
You win.
So this whole problem, tag is gonna create, just do a little stick and then have a 30.
Adam, ma'am, how are you?
Part of that, that you can put on WLS TV as a public service. And if you have a little picture of a car and a guy sticking his tag on there, that'll ring a bell.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Good suggestion.